The following podcast may contain spoilers.
Hello, everybody. It's been a long time and kind of a different world. How have you all been? My name's Jonathan Kinney. I'm the host of the Trading the Path of Heaven podcast, and I'm joined by my co-hosts.
I'm Bill.
I'm Rich.
I'm Seth. I sounded sad about my own name. That's not.
You did. What's up with that?
Yeah, that's a weird. That's a weird feeling to have. Sorry, me.
Yeah, but we're back. We're recording online. I think it's one of the first times we haven't done our recording in person. And it's a little bit different here, so if there's some change in the audio quality or what's going on, please, forgive our work. But it's good to be back in the saddle. Good to connect with my friends again.
Yeah, COVID has definitely not helped in getting this going. On top of nature itself coming down to stop us from meeting in person.
Yeah, we actually had plans to meet physically today, and then it started snowing heavily for the first time this season. And
Really for the first time in like
us.
3 years. And
Yeah,
there are one of my coworkers went off on a rant about this in our chat today. There are exactly 8 snowplows in all of Portland. So that's great. Super good for when this kind of thing happens.
Well, no wonder they can't deal with it. That's incredible. Things you learn. But today we're here and we're coming to talk about one of our favorite books and one of the ones that we had promised to come back and talk about once a little bit more had happened. A fan favorite Korean novel on Wuxia World, Overgeared.
Yay! Everyone's been begging us to continue talking about Overgeared. I haven't read it, of course, because that's my shtick. But everybody in the Discord has been like clamoring for this one.
I've gotten, believe it or not, in the break, I've gotten maybe like 40 people I know in real life to pick up Overgeared, the actual novel. Because I remember getting a message from a friend of mine who texted me in the middle of the night and saying that he took off work for a week because he got addicted and read all the way to the end. So that's the thing that happened.
I get that, man. When I picked it up, I think I pretty much read from like chapter 1 up to where it was. Luckily for me, it was pretty early on, so that wasn't like a week of time, but I get the addiction.
This is like the most popcorn Korean novel I've read in a long time. It just keeps you think you're at the bottom of the bag, and it just keeps giving it to you, man.
Yeah, no, it's twists and turns. Although I think I might be starting to get savvy because I called something that just happened recently, like more than a year ago. So I'm all excited. We'll get to that at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, no, we wanted to talk about Overgeared and all the crazy shit that's happened. To be honest, I don't exactly remember where we left off on our last podcast about Overgeared, but I think it was around the Olympics where Grid was the Demon Lord.
Yeah, it had to be the Demon. Was it the Demon Lord one or was it the one before? It had to be the Demon Lord one, right?
I feel like it was the Demon Lord one, and let's be honest, like I got to talk like
that's so long ago.
Even if it wasn't, that's too important to not talk about.
Basically, yeah.
That was back when dragons were not things you could go have dinner with.
Oh, Jesus Christ, so much has happened in this series. It's been such a fun ride. But seriously, like, let's start there because, like, honestly, we'll just go wherever the hell we want. This is not going to be a structured. We're not talking about this is how A then B happened. We're just going to talk about shit we enjoyed in the story. But yeah, no, Grid. Like for me, it was the first confirmation that Grid was just like completely different than anyone else in the story already. Like we knew that, but that was the story admitting it because they're like, oh yeah, Grid can't participate in the Olympics. No, he'd win everything.
Yeah, it wouldn't be close.
So instead, let's just make the final event be him versus the world.
Wait, so it's its own Olympic event, or is it like okay?
Yeah,
So
it became okay. They've had a problem. Okay, let me set it up for you. Okay, the company that runs the game they're playing. Okay, the company that runs is it Satisfy? Yes, Satisfy,
Yeah,
right?
it's the SA group.
Yeah, the SA group. They run the Olympics. Everyone can participate. SA groups. The game and the Satisfy economy is like the world economy, whatever. They were kind of losing rating and participation because the best and brightest around the world weren't attending because everyone's just going to lose the grid. That was just the assumption, right? So they limited what they can enter. Then they were like, no, we got to stop grid from entering entirely. But we can't have a situation where grid doesn't enter because then we lose all the ad revenue.
Yeah, no, he's like the most famous person in Satisfy, and therefore one of the most famous people in the world. Like he's on commercials, he's like he gives speeches and like shows up in press releases and shit. Like to not put him in the Olympics is just a waste out on fucking revenue.
the Olympics committee, ever resourceful and corrupt, was just like, yeah, okay, we'll do something that attracts to the lowest common denominator, i.e., everybody. Add grid. Though I will say this is not a lowest common denominator comment. This is just the Olympic Committee's willingness to add new things. They did add breakdancing for the next Summer Olympics. It's called breaking. It's an official Olympic sport now. It's breaking, the Olympic event. I cannot fucking wait to see some like Dutch breakdancers absolutely tear the shit up. Sorry, just
Oh man,
real
no,
excited on that.
That does sound super sick. Also, like gaming is going to be in the next. Was supposed to be in the 2020 Olympics, but that you know what happened with that with COVID. So the next Olympics is going to have gaming. But getting back to grid, all right, they set up this Seth. They set up like a super duper cinematic like trailer showing you come from him, and he chose his four strongest followers as
Which are all named
generals.
NPCs. Like
Well,
in this game, like NPCs just basically they're basically monsters in human form, so they have way higher stats and way higher potential. They're like when you go up against a boss monster, NPCs have stats like that because they're supposed to survive and be important to the story.
well, like they didn't even know it was Grid initially.
Yeah,
They,
no, they just released his like demon form
Yeah,
image.
yeah.
well,
It was
yeah,
a given from
all they knew
image.
was like a strong, like they thought it was just a pure PVE event, but they ended up using Grid and four of his followers as the Demon Lord and the four Demon Generals, and like people guessed over time, like, oh god, that's Grid, but like,
They didn't know for sure, but it was thought they did a cool scene showing things off, and people were like, "Well, Grid's not entering. What's the point, right?"
Yeah, and then by the end, of course, he starts using his moves that are like iconic and tied to him now, and like people are like, "Oh, it's Grid." So, but like the only thing that the group changed, literally the only thing they changed was they just gave him a shit ton more health. But like everything else was actually his own power, which most people didn't realize, which was hilarious because it just disguised how much Grid had grown.
And then, one of my favorite things about that situation is I call it in my mind. I call it the cannon arc when he built cannons and then brought that big cannon into the battle, like that. And there was a whole character they introduced focused around the cannon that Grid built in the real game. The crack of the story so far beyond that is mind blowing because we've yet to go back to that chick who joined the Overgeared
oh yeah,
Overgeared guild
you
for
mean the
just
Cannoneer
cannons.
crew?
Yeah,
The hardest class to train because nobody wants to do it because it requires so much money and backing.
yeah.
And I was like, and even whenever you're a part of it, it's like, well, why aren't you just a warrior and just solve the problem with your sword? Why were you a cannoneer, you fool? But no, Overgear King was like, yeah, we need you. We need you to run these magic cannons I just made.
And also, the cannons we've made are way like solve all of your problems already.
Yeah, you just gotta like point and click and shit.
It's so good. It's so good. Like there's so many things Grid touches on, but also because of the way they set up all of this. All right, this is me being scatterbrained, but I want to just shout out to his prime minister, man. I just want to shout out to
Wow.
Lau.
Yeah, Lau, one of my favorite characters still to this day.
He's like a hidden god because he could be a high ranker, super duper high ranker like everyone, but he's actually like the demon of over like if if Faker is the dagger of Overgeared, the demon of Overgeared is Lau, who's making all of the decisions, and he will do the bad things.
Yeah, no,
Grid
he's like the
requires.
Dark Shogun, or like the Gin from Doctor Stone, or like he's the evil that you need to make a thing function correctly.
It's so good, dude. It's so good. Like jumping ahead. I didn't know Lau was doing this, and then he just dropped this little bit of piece, and I'm like, of course Lau did it. The thing about Damien's like weapons made for Grid. Grid's been making free weapons for people because he was thinking, oh, I'm a nice guy. I just make weapons for my friends. But his friends know how valuable Grid's work are. And Lau knows that. So it's like, yeah, he gave it to free. You're gonna pay into our storehouses. You have to pay the money.
So
Or you
Grid's
can't
been
get
pretty much
anything.
single-handedly like filling the treasury without fucking realizing it.
And it's like they casually mention this, but it's like, of course, it makes 100% sense because the way the story's been set up, there's no way. That casual statement solved the thing I was thinking about in the back of my head because Grid's been making King's Quests from Lau's recommendation, but I'm like, how are they paying for this? And that was how.
No, it makes perfect sense. Like the series has such consistent writing, and it'll create questions that you're like, well, what? This doesn't make any sense, and then it'll solve it like 30 chapters later, and it's the setup for a cool scene that you weren't expecting.
It's so good.
No, I still love this series a lot, but it's so much like crazy shit has happened. Like, because at the beginning of the game, like I think last time we had left off, I think people were on the cusp of like hitting 300 and starting to hit that third class advancement. Where they get the stat boost where like even normal players can start to actually match up against legend and myth classes, except that they're overgeared.
Yep.
But like we've got to the point where like people are pretty much about to hit the fourth one, or a good bit of people have.
There's people in the fifth one right now, not just in the unlocking of transcendence and how like it's crazy. Like 300 isn't impressive anymore because of the time of the game. That's crazy.
Well, it's so cool that like it's decided to like not change its systems, but like establish like these kind of cultivation tropes, almost this idea of like, well, no, it's not about gaining experience anymore. It's about gaining like enlightenment. It's about like perfecting your art and doing things in a way that hasn't been done before. Because like it literally, once you hit 400, the experience system changes from like you get a bunch of experience when you kill a big boss to like you get experience when you do things that further your class and your legend and your story. So like in his case, like if he does really cool blacksmithing shit, he'll gain a bunch of levels.
And also like how personal the quests are getting now too. It's not like go do this and do that. It's not even just him because it flashes to all the other characters.
Like we haven't talked about the whole fucking the epics. Like we haven't talked about
the epics. Oh shit!
Like he basically started this epics, which was essentially ended up being like his like ascension to a myth ranked class over a legendary class, in my opinion at least. But it's everyone has been like so impactful, and it's all been these like really cool scenes and like the ends of these story arcs that he's been developing with like really like people. But it's always like he'll make this choice to do something extraordinary. Like he'll go up against something that everyone's like, no, there's no way to fight that thing. But he's like, no, I'll get lucky. I'll do there. I believe in my items. And he'll fucking push through to get it.
It's usually like it's emotional. Like he's not controlling the writing of the myth.
Yeah,
it just happens, right?
The story has been really good about like establishing things that you want to happen. And sometimes like my favorite ones of the epics have been like when he'll take something that he's been wanting to do and he'll just sacrifice it upon that altar of emotion or caring about his friends or like doing right by someone that has like helped him. Like he's grown so much as a person that like his concern is no longer like his whole deal is like, let's make everyone around me stronger. I get way more from the support of hundreds of people around me than I do by getting myself strong, despite still being the strongest fucking person.
I mean, he's the light of humanity now, man. He's literally the emperor from 40K. That's him right now. Quite literally.
So let's talk about just like a little bit of a few of like the plot points that have happened. Like the Overgeared Kingdom has been developing. One of the major things that's happened in the interim since what we talked about is that their interactions with the Saharan Empire kind of built up to a head. And like I was so convinced that the Saharan Empire was going to be like Overgeared's stepping stone. Like it was going to be the thing that they had to defeat to become a legitimate empire, or like that was going to like I was positive that was going to happen. But of course, like Overgeared always does, no, it's not a story about that. It's a story about how there's another better way.
All of your expectations do get lampshaded in this one because everything in the story was pointing to that interaction, was pointing to this outcome. Even the outcomes you think NPCs are having end up getting turned on its head.
Like you've got all the characters that have beef against the Saharan Empire are the people that Grid is emotionally attached to. So you're like, you're even convinced, if you're thinking about it, like, no, he's going to make the choice emotionally to make sure that he doesn't offend his friends and that he does right by them, even if he doesn't like it. No, he's going to instead make the Empire. Like, he's going to show up and be such a cool fucking dude and make such cool choices that the Empire's going to be like, you know what? No, you're right. We should help you instead. Like, he goes in and solves all Empire's fucking, like, political drama by himself, basically.
A few of those he solves on mistake, but, you know, we take those.
That's Grid's MO. Like, 30% of what he does is intentional.
You gotta take mistakes, yeah. Like, if you don't take mistakes, then, like, how do you get anything done? You definitely gotta like accidentally fuck something up, and it still result in the right thing sometimes.
And I take that and try to crank it to 11. Grid mostly makes mistakes, or at least that's what his character was predicated on in the beginning. Almost everything he did, if it was successful, it wasn't because of him. It was, because of other people around him.
But he definitely became way, way, way more competent. Like he really. But, like, the mistakes he made in the past, like, I'm talking, like, 700 chapters back reappear in the story as advantages for him now. Like, it's kind of nuts, right? Like, what was the name? What was the name of that country? The other player country that wasn't Overgeared Kingdom. I'm trying to remember.
Oh God, I don't remember.
Yeah, they're still there. They're still around. They're still doing stuff, right? They have a little group of
unimportant.
Was it the ones that got invaded?
They were waging war with the Empire. They're still around. They're still spreading out and all other stuff.
Was it the group that was like led by Ares?
Yes, the guy led by Ares.
Okay,
Yep. Like from the stuff when Grid went undercover back then and cut off like Homeboy's arm, Cal's arm.
Yeah.
And then Cal, like him using that fear that happened back then on mistake.
Because he develops a trauma over the undefeated king.
Yeah.
So much of this story is Grid using like a one-time power or like 3 of his most broken abilities triggering at the same time to like beat something that is unbeatable, and then somebody witnesses it and gets the wrong idea about how strong he is, and just the utter awe they feel for Grid dominates their behavior for the rest of the story.
Like oh my God, I just want to say you were right about the God thing.
Yeah,
you were so right. You recorded it. You were so right. It's like when I think about it, they were kind of pointing.
Be specific. Be specific. What you mean?
Okay, so like more than a year ago, I think around the time actually they were doing the first like Overgeared art and poetry and story contest. Richard and I were just like talking about Overgeared, and like I was because Lowell was like so upset about the Overgeared naming convention on everything, I just imagined this scene where Grid became a god, and there's now Lowell has to deal with the fact that he now has control over a religion somewhat. And I'm like, the only way that scene has to include a part where it is the Overgeared church, because Grid is the Overgeared god. And then lo and behold, he becomes the god of items, the Overgeared god.
Well, look at you, la dee dang.
But like they planted those seeds. Like now that it's happened in the story, the seeds were planted with like the daughters of Rebecca, like Isabel, like almost offending the goddess Rebecca by deifying Grid in her mind when he saved their church way back.
Yeah,
and like it's crazy how far back that was. but like,
yeah, and then like it's there's so much good like
and you just forgot. Like I forgot that happened until they were like, yeah, that did happen. She did deify him in her heart. Oh
Like-
shit.
with the exception of some of the mystery going into Pagma and the Seven Malignant Saints, because there's still a lot of that story that like I think is in mystery. Like they've resolved most of the questions and things that were posed in the beginning arcs at this point. Like, you know, when they were starting, they're talking about Lich Mahmood and Bram and Marie Rose and like all of these people that are no longer vague concepts and legends. They are now characters that Grid has interacted with and or dominated and or become friends with.
Except for one. There's only one that, like you think about Grid right now, right? The only things he's scared of, like the only things he doesn't want to mess with right now, right? Dragons and
Euphemia. He still thinks he's weaker than Euphemia for some reason.
Yeah, Euphemia and Chisato. like the real god of combat, the real one, not the fake one, not Zeratul, the fake one, the real one.
Yeah.
And Marie Rose.
Yeah, exactly. And Marie Rose, which is like, to be fair, yeah, that's true. But
it never occurred to me. I thought Marie Rose was gonna be like that like a mid boss. It never occurred to me him running into Marie Rose that early, just like her aura was like how insane Marie Rose actually is.
Yeah, no, she's become increasingly more relevant. It's like you get a thing in like a Dungeons and Dragons game early on, and then it gets revealed when you're level 19 that weapon's been an artifact the entire time, and you know, like, is the crux of the whole story, but you didn't fucking realize it.
Like everything, all roads lead back to Marie Rose. All of them. Well, I mean, and I don't understand how this character, who's a phantom, by the way, a phantom in the story.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. The reason she's so important is because Bram is fucking Grid's like fucking like destined Aibo partner. Like the touching scene where
Aibo like the robot dog.
No, Aibo like partner in Japanese, like what Nindo and Psyche call Psyche.
So yes, still like Aibo the robot dog.
Kind of, yeah.
And then, it's kind of crazy. Like when okay, so this is you would love this. You would actually love this part of the story if you were to read it, Seth, because this is right up your alley. Yeah? There's a quest he gets from the tower, right? From Hayate to Dragon Slayer, whatever.
Oh, yeah. By the way, there's a place called the Tower of Wisdom. Only the person that's the best human in the world, like the best player character in the world, gets invited to be the quote-unquote pioneer, who is the face of the tower and the one who goes and acts as their representative in the world. So Grid just became that at some point, and now he's been doing quests for them. Continue.
Yeah, and all those people are fucking bros. All of them are bros. Every single one of the people in the tower are awesome. Really, really good, really, really powerful. The greatest of their races, like beyond transcendent.
Grid does not trust them even a little bit. He's so afraid that they're going to fuck him.
He? Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, the only one he seems to like have the biggest soft spot for is definitely Hayate, but Hayate is insane. That dude is absolutely like that last chapter I just read had me shook. All right, but I'm not. The character's insane.
That's because every time he shows up, the thing Grid is worried about, like he's like, hey, Hayate, he shows up in front of the guy, and he's like, hey, everyone but Grid, go away. And he's like, hey, that thing you're worried about, I see it. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, he gets this quest, right, from Hayate directly. A dude who helped solve his energy problem, right? Solve the imbalance in his body, all right? So he got this from Hayate. Hayate's like, can you do me a favor? It is the gourmet cycle. I need you to bring the gourmet dragon raiders to all of the greatest food places, greatest restaurants you can find. He needs to say that was delicious at least 40 times. And this is a dragon that's been around forever.
So wait, is this like a dragon whose treasure is experience?
His treasure is good meals.
Good meals.
That's incredible, and I'm absolutely in love. Does he have like a notebook that he writes down all the stuff in? How does he catalog them?
No,
he just remembers that shit.
He's greater than a god. Dragons are beyond a god. They don't befriend people. They've existed for like power is what they are, right?
All right.
He only cares about food. This is the guy that like I always thought the phrase Gourmet Dragon Raiders was a weird like title when we first met. What was it? Skitches? What was
Yeah.
his name?
I don't remember. Fuck.
Yeah. The elf teacher that is basically Homeboy's teleporting the teacher of Lord, right? His life was in danger, and he's been trying to save the World Tree because he got cursed by the Gourmet Dragon Raiders when Gourmet Dragon attacked the elf attacked the World Tree. It ate its roots to taste it for flavor.
Yeah, it had to know if the World Tree roots were delicious. So
Yeah.
It made an enemy, a lifelong enemy of the entire elf race.
That is the most dedicated to tasting every like I personally, Seth Thompson, I like tasting a new thing if I can help it. If there's a new thing that comes out, I'm gonna taste that shit. That speaks to my heart. If I were a dragon, I would be the dragon who collects flavors.
This is your personified dragon. If you only care, like if you had lived longer than there was time and had godlike power. This dude, all right, he found like this is how you get introduced to the actual Gourmet Dragon Raiders, okay? You show up and it's this old homely inn, right? And you walk in and Raiders is in a room eating food, and he's kept this family here alive for generations because he loved the flavor of the way they cook their food.
This is the story I was going to tell.
Yo, you take over from here, Kenny. Because it's actually wild the way they set that shit up.
No, oh god, no, yeah. He basically he comes in. He's like, he makes it clear that he's like, oh yeah, no, the flavor that I had from 100 years is still there, but you haven't invented any new stuff. You're still relying on the flavor of old. It's like, you told us to do that, but you should have done more.
That's unconscionable. You're a bad dragon.
You know, like he was eating. He was eating. He was talking to what's his name? Is like such a familiar. He was talking to Grid. He's like such a familiar flavor. You know, before you arrived, I was contemplating killing everyone here. But now that you're here, you're gonna take me on the stuff. I guess I'll spare. He goes down and he tells the dude, he's like, "I'll be back in 100 years. Make sure your child remembers this flavor, but I need you to improve and give me a new flavor on the next visit in 100 years." And it's like, how long has this family been trapped in this one area?
Because if they move away, he'll find them.
And they
Of course he
can't
will.
change
He's got
anything.
nothing but time.
And they can't change anything. He needs it to stay old school. Because when you enter the inn, all Greek can comment on is how old and strange and like archaic everything in the inn was. And you're like, why would a dragon be here? And it's like, because this is what he wanted.
Oh god. I know this is a complete non sequitur, but I started to think about the Great Red Robber of the Night.
Oh, he's so cool.
He's basically a fucking phantom thief. Like he has his own fucking demi-plane that he could just retreat to at any time that no one else that him can get into.
Robbing the country.
And he goes out and he's fucking Carmen Sandiego shit. And I mean that literally because like he's stolen concepts before.
He can steal the concept, he can steal things, and his thievery is so powerful, it hides him from the gods, okay? Hides them from God, all right? That's how good he is at stealing.
But I love that, like, way back in the day, and this is one of the reasons why I thought Grid would be the god of items and not the god of blacksmithing, like you might think from his class. He and the god of blacksmithing got in like a blacksmithing competition, and like he made like a legendary item that was incredible, and like there was so much heart and spirit in it that the god admitted defeat. But the normal item the god created was a short sword with like 1,000 times the base attack power of like the best weapons available in the game. And like the god shows up, defies the rest of the gods, and gives this sword to Grid to help him win against something.
Yeah, he like, dude, honestly, Hexia's a bro. He at first when you're introduced to him, like, fuck that guy, right?
Because he has weird colored fire nipples.
But he's a bro.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to describe fire nipples more.
He has ever-changing multicolored fire nipples. Both of his nipples glow with the fire of the forge.
It's the heat that he uses to smelt and forge his weapons. He just shoots beams of fire from his nipples.
Smelts with nipple lasers? That's fucking Jesus
always
Christ,
lit.
what is this book?
They're always lit, my man. And he's a little self-conscious about it, but it's fine. It's fine, right? It's cool.
The author puts so much work into like creating and like actually like fleshing out characters that you see that you assume are just going to be there for like a chapter, but then become relevant hundreds of chapters later after they've come to the inevitable conclusion of the thing you saw started in the chapter 100 years, like hundreds of chapters ago.
You know, when you pointed out, that is so true. There's so many random reoccurring characters, or like I'm not gonna say random because we've met them, know their backstories, know their personality, and then you show up and you're like, oh yeah, like when Knight showed up again, or like when this character show up again, or they'll change the POV to a character that we haven't seen in like 400 chapters, but it makes total sense because of course they're there, right? Like this is what they would be doing.
Yeah.
like this book has so many people that could be the main characters of their own story.
Yeah,
like Chris. Fucking Chris.
Chris would be the main character if Grid didn't exist. Like straight up. Like Kroggle would be the main character if Grid didn't exist.
Kroggle is existing in a different like Kroggle's in a seinen story, all right? Chris is in a shonen story. Okay?
Yeah, Kroggle's off like training in the mountains against bears, except actually way more hardcore than that.
Like rejecting his school. He's like, I am the sword saint. I'm gonna learn to be a spearman because I can do that. Because
spears are cooler than swords anyway. Y'all suck. Bye.
No, using the spear is the correct path to being the best sword man.
And the whole time, like the spearmaster is just like confused. Like, why would he do this?
And then, of course, it's so great for like Grid to be talking to Hayate later, and for Hayate to be like, "What a smart dude." Yeah, no, Muller's swordsmanship wasn't the peak at all. Definitely, no. There's definitely a better path. This guy made the right choice. There's a better, higher sword out there.
Forge his own path. I like it. He'll achieve it.
No,
sure.
I feel like the story is gearing up for the next Olympics, and I'm really excited because I hope Kraugo comes back and we have that inevitable like interaction between him and Grid that we haven't seen in so long.
That is going to be the greatest 1v1 ever. When that actually happens again, when they're both finally at the same level, I'm actually hyped to see that. Like that's going to be my Super Bowl, okay? When that happens, oh my jeez. Okay, so like we occasionally like every like 50 chapters, okay, we flash to Kroggle's POV, okay? And it's like some insane shit. And he's doing stuff that Grid had every advantage in doing, but Kroggle has every disadvantage, right? Like Grid fought the Eastern Kingdom demigod. He fought the weak versions of the Eastern Kingdom demigods. Kroggle's getting toyed with the strongest of the Eastern Kingdom demigods while he's underleveled.
Yeah,
because he's the sword saint and they think he's trying to get the book, but he doesn't want it.
Yeah, Kroggle basically at the point where he was like either the strongest or the second strongest person in the story, like willingly took the choice to drop to level 1 to fucking just like have more potential. And that's like, such a like in like years into the game, so that's not like a small gap anymore. But no, it's like the whole Eastern side, like the story of like the revelation, like we've come to find out that the West, the part of where the story starts and most of where it's occurred has been like the Western side of what used to be one giant continent that was like split at a point in history. And like the Eastern side is very much more like Oriental and like spiritual and like
they actually have Taoist immortals there. To put that into like they have Taoist immortals there. It is basically a Chinese cultivation novel if it was a world in not Japan, not China.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. And so like Grid ended up like going over there and doing a lot of stuff. Like he basically, you know, restored like the honor, like he restored ancient gods back to their place. He like helped protect a kingdom and like restored their past glory. He like ended up taking a bunch of refugees from some of the East continents and using them to create his kingdom,
And stealing all of their blacksmiths,
stealing
and,
almost all of their blacksmiths.
let's see here, getting the one of the Phoenix's strongest heart, the Phoenix God's strongest hearts, that which is still paying dividends to this day.
Yeah, no, it's still insane. Like, I mean, that's where his firestorm ability comes from, right?
Yeah.
The one that heals his friends, the fucking bullshit. Like, oh my god.
And then he evolved that somehow. Evolved the god. You know, it's crazy. It's
But
crazy.
like, he's like it. The story progressed from this like medieval story of like, oh, let's fight God. Let's fight. You know, there are gods and demons and angels, and we gotta live in that world. And then it moves to this completely like different like Taoist immortal where there are also gods and things fighting, but it's like the power is completely different and the relations are completely different. And like Grid just like climbs his way up to the top in this system. And he earns so much that they're basically like, you know what? You fucking earned it. Do you want to become a god and change your race from human to god? Like join our ranks.
Yeah, become a half god. And he's like, no.
Nah, I want to stay a human. And like that choice is like the choice that has defined pretty much the rest of the story up until the point where he became a god. And like the great part about him becoming a god now is that it is not like he didn't change. He's still a human. God is like a title he has.
It's a status, right? It's a status. It's not. He has.
So he said, "I don't want to be made a god," and they were like, "Yeah, okay, we're still gonna make you a god, you fucking asshole."
It's
and
the
like,
it's the belief of people that did it.
He
oh,
literally
this
has
world
enough
rules.
faith.
Okay,
Yeah.
He acquired faith because you got to realize a dark secret of the gods got revealed when they were trying to stop a demon invasion. And you realize that there's more, like there's so much more to not only the seven good people and the gods, Rebecca and her clones. Well, I call them clones. Rebecca and her slaves. And
yeah, there was a god of light, and she didn't want to do all the work, so she made lesser gods to handle her responsibilities, but still get praised above all of them.
Yep,
that's super lame.
And then her god, her opposite god exists, who's over all the demons and everything, whatever. But you realize, like yeah, but for a god to follow, the evil god is actually pretty reasonable. He's been pretty reasonable so far.
That's what I love about like what I was saying earlier is that like pretty much all the stuff that was talked to or alluded about in the beginning has been resolved or introduced in a way that we understand how it's functioning with the story until they write something that changes it. But like now we're getting a peek into the bigger picture, like the deeper stuff, the causes for all of these contentions and why it didn't resolve itself in some other way earlier. Like we're starting to see. We're starting to get our peeks into the room where it happens. Like when we're seeing the actions of dragons and what the true personalities of gods and, you know, why the people in power are in power. And like, I'm really excited as we're kind of like cresting this. It's not like I can't say the second what do you even define as arcs in this story?
We haven't even reached the infernal arc in the story yet. Like it's definitely like we're so deep in. You're like, yeah, status of God, but really it's the level of power on cosmology is just different. Like we're at the point where Grid, if he would lay down his head to Rebecca, would be part of that pantheon, subservient to Rebecca, right? As a human.
And he's strong enough for Rebecca to potentially see that as a legitimate and necessary thing to do.
Like the other gods they're axing the other gods only see Grid as being good, and he was like, we offer you a chance to just you be forgiven, join us, you know, like and he of course you have to take a hard line stance because he knows the secret. He knows the secret. And I bet you he feels bad about the stuff that happened at Rebecca's church like 500 chapters ago when he chose not to work on the side of the malignant saints. Because regardless, he's going to end up on that side anyway.
Yeah, no, it's like, and I'm fascinated how like the new information we've learned about the gods and the backstory is going to influence Pagma's story, which we're still uncovering.
Oh yeah, that's
we've learned that Pagma was originally from the Eastern continent. He was one of the half gods originally, and like came to the West. So that like changes Grid's whole origin story. Like it's
Yeah.
Everything's connected in this story.
He was the nicest. He was the friendliest of the demigods, and also bullied to hell and back because of the way his talents were different than everyone else. In fact, come to find out, not only is Pagma obscenely special, his sword dances were blessed to him by the god of all combat. So that means these sword dances were intended to be this insane. Taken to their limit, they were intended to be that insane.
Can we talk about how great it is that basically all the paladins of the Overgeared Church get is lessened item restrictions and the sword dances?
Yeah. And I also love how like the narrator is like alluding that that's actually OD. The way he said it, they don't realize, like Grid didn't realize just how insane the sword dances for your paladins and priests are.
Yeah,
like,
no, I loved Damien's the author writing that chapter in Damien's perspective of like, no, this is gonna pay off. I have no doubt. I've witnessed it. I have faith.
Yeah, and he's just like not good. Like he's seeing the limits of his potential as a player, trying to flesh this out. It's also interesting to see a better mechanical player than Grid learning Grid's dances, right? Like
and having the same struggles that Grid was had.
Yeah, and then you see like, and Damien's interesting because he's like the NPCs that chose to deify him and went over to him, like the Rebecca daughters of Rebecca that now follow Grid.
Yeah,
they're picking it up and they're doing fusion, like triple fusions and shit already.
Yeah, no, they're already so far along the path. Fucking named NPCs. No, there's been so much like cool shit.
It really sounds it.
Like, just like the first time where Jashuka used, where she was like, went to the Eastern continent and had her battle against the I can't remember his name, the undead king guy.
Yeah. At low level. Low level, by the way.
Yeah, she's like she just reset her level to become a legendary class like Kraugel did, and all she pretty much has is this myth-rated bow, which, don't get me wrong, that's not insignificant by any means. But like, she goes up against one of Agnes, one of the highest level characters like in the entire game, and who has one of the strongest potential classes, and like basically enables his defeat at a low level, like through like tactics, and then this amazing scene of like she has this ability where she can fire an arrow at everyone she can see, limited literally just by sight.
That's way too broken.
Also, I just want to point out, Jashuka is 100% deserves to be a legend. She becoming a legend under her own power. Did not become like the old bow person's like follower. Did not do. She literally made her own path.
Yeah, no, she's one of the coolest characters, and like what's so cool is that like she's so badass that the story doesn't need to spend much time talking about her. It could just be like, this is what she's accomplished, and she's so established that you're like, yep, I get it. I understand that she got there. And then like the few scenes where you do get to see her fucking prove her mettle are just so powerful. Like the first scene where she did the target test in the Olympics was like so powerful.
Yeah, I remember that scene.
All right, but we got to talk about the Overgeared Hell Branch, which just got set up unbeknownst to anyone.
Yeah. His waifu number 2 set up the Overgeared Hell Branch. Jashuka's main rival.
Yura.
Yura in Hell set that up.
Yeah, she's the legendary class demon slayer, so it's not unreasonable for her to be doing a bunch of shit down there, but she's been like off by herself for like hundreds of chapters now,
getting more powerful, farming in probably the best farming spot on the planet, except it's the most dangerous farming spot on the planet, and you realize she's been doing that since level 1. So when Grid went down there, when Grid went down to Hell, all right, voluntarily to check things out and do stuff and tame him a couple succubi.
Oh yeah, I forgot that he tamed succubi. I can't wait for that to be relevant. That's going to be such a funny scene.
Get dressed, by the way. His only rules was you got to get dressed. You have to be overgeared. He can make gear for them because also Raiders gave him an ability to. He's been working on improving his tailoring, right, so he can make better underwear.
Mm-hmm.
And Raiders, because of the food quest, gave him stuff that lets him make better underwear, which is what he needs so he can clothe the goddamn succubi. But
It's gonna be way more racy though.
but he went down there and he realized just how insane. Like not only in hell, your stamina gets cooked, you're weaker, things are harder, people can penetrate it, you can randomly aggro the demon lords if they wake up, just come up and just come and kill you. It's not a joke. It's hard. Everything
Sure.
is difficult.
Yeah.
Like insanely difficult, which then puts into perspective if the strongest human and a transcendent is having this hard of a time, and then it made Grid himself look at Yura and realize what the hell Yura's been doing this entire time. Like, even with hell regulation, being down there is like impossible. It is. But you also see that,
Yeah, and we as the readers know how strong Grid is, so we understand how like significant her strength there is, because like Grid is literally at the point where he is fighting gods, he is fighting great demons by himself and winning. He can like shumpo around. He has the ability to, at like the cost of stamina, know where every attack is coming at him and dodge all of them. Like he's like. He's kind of like mastered his own space at this point. And yet even there, he would like, even at that, he was kind of struggling. But Yura's fine. And like, it was such a like powerful moment that didn't need to say a lot to show how powerful it was.
Yeah, it's basically, it is 100% showing and not telling in a novel. Like it just puts you in awe of these characters, right? Like of specific characters when they do get their chance. Because there's so many characters.
Like the whole story is just people getting their 15 minutes of fame and being like, I want that again. And like, I'm going to change the way I've been living. And then like it happens. And then like they do or they don't, or something like sometimes that like people start on that quest and then we find out later that something like really fucked up happened to them. And like their whole character has changed in a very believable way because of it. Like the whole interaction with Overgeared and Agnes has been fascinating because it's like, again, one of those situations where you're like, all right, here's a guy that's being set up to be a villain. And like what instead happens is like, we get this question of like, is this person a villain? Is what he's doing evil? Or is he just being led by his fucking circumstances? Like if I lived this life, would I do the exact same thing?
I mean, Agnes is just walking tragedy. He could be an MC of a tragedy anime. Like, yeah, everything about him is really sad. All he wants to do is recreate the love of his life that was raped and murdered.
He's a kaiji.
Yeah, he just wants to recreate her in the story. He's a kaiji. He is 100% a kaiji. He keeps making bad decisions for a kaiji. The will they won't they relationship between him and Euphemia trying to do her legendary class quest involving Agnes, and the scene of Agnes just giving up and giving over Mahmood.
Yeah. And like
that was insane. And like I didn't get the chance to talk about it when it happened, but that moment was actually, I keep saying insane, but like it was just a lie. It was like really emotional for something that's been building up for so long as an F plot, not even a C or D plot, like an F plot that's been happening.
I mean, that's the point, is like this story has consistently been like, here's the A through Z plot, and you're like, and the whole time it tries to sucker you into saying that, into thinking the A plot's the only important one, and then proving to you that it's not.
Over and over and over again, it keeps doing that. You keep thinking, and I'm still wanting to get more Lord. They keep giving me glances of Lord showing up, and his harem's growing larger, ever larger every time we see him.
I don't know whether he or his harem is going to be more scary in the end.
And then you see Greg get numb to it and just like trying to pick who he can accept to join Lord harem or not. Like the girl he thought was what is it? The girl he brought over from the Eastern Kingdoms was the one. Remember the one that was the assistant in that disgusting cook guy's shop that he uses dexterity on, and in Grid's mind she's a loose woman. But in her mind, she was assaulted by Grid. Basically.
It's the curse of high dexterity. It happened in Legendary Moonlight Sculptor, too. He could... That was like a special attack he used in the real world.
But like she's that chick is Lord's one of Lord's favorite people, but Grid doesn't approve of her because of the history. But like then there's this plots with Cassim and the what's the name of the techniques that Faker learned to become the real
Lantier.
the Lantier techniques and the Inheritor and like that whole mini arc with Faker and the Lantier techniques and
We
the
have this person.
Overgeared shadows and
We have this guy Faker who's been like the like you said, like the dagger of the Overgeared Kingdom for so long, like the guy who can strike from the shadows and watch from the shadows and protect you and let you know what's going on. And like he's been that for so long, and then like he's been trying to get like a legendary class related to Lantier, the legendary is basically like a king of thieves, like the head of like the most powerful information network, depending on who you're talking to. And like you think the entire time it's like, oh, he's gonna like be like Jashuka and like he's gonna master some like assassination technique or some shadow jutsu, and that's what's gonna be the thing that kicks him over, and then he'll find his own path. No. It turns out Lantier's like a inherited title, like a Dread Pirate Roberts thing. The person who's just like at the the forefront of this thing just is it, so he just like gets it and becomes it. It's because he's the most worthy.
That's amazing.
He also because of the influence of Grid, he like changes all of the assassin guild stuff. Like for example, Grid needed to find all of the greatest restaurants on the planet, so he enlisted the Overgeared Shadows. The problem is, all the assassins have had all of their sense of taste numb, so they had to get them to learn the flavor. So they used the disgusting chef guy, terrible food, to let them realize this is what bad food tastes like. We need the opposite of what bad food tastes like.
So anything that's not this, huh?
They machine learned, hey, just not this. Yeah, that's amazing.
And then for some reason we keep getting POVs of this character, this terrible chef character, but he has an important job, right? Like there's a part where paladins from a different church are trying to sneak into the Overgeared Kingdom. The gourmet dragon was here, and he found out as the kingdom's the kingdom's personal chef. He was like, I must serve the dragon. So he made his best food. He even used the magical ingredient salt that people keep telling him about in the food. Finally, he used salt for the first time ever. And of course, Grid's not going to bring a dragon that could destroy everyone and everything to eat the worst food on the planet. So he takes that food and he's like, if he won't eat it, I'm just going to go give it to the refugees and the poor. So he goes to the edge of the kingdom and he sees these undercover paladins. He's like, hey, you guys want some food? I made lunch boxes for the refugees. Here you go.
And of course, the paladins are looking at him and they're like, oh my god, this person found us immediately out of all these refugees. He must be someone important in the kingdom. This must be a test. We'll have to eat this food.
So they ate the food and like immediately they get poisoned.
So much of this story runs on false conceptions.
The beauty of it is because they got poisoned, they're like, oh, we've been revealed. They took off their clothes and they ran, but just so happens they got stopped by the greatest defense force in all of the Overgeared Kingdom.
Yeah, one of the strongest military forces they have, the Overgeared Farmers.
The Overgeared Farmers. And so in their mind, their farmers are this strong. All of their farmers, they saw a noble, literally, like he's literally a former prince, right? And he's walking, and they're like, oh, it's a noble. And he's like, no, I'm a farmer. And their minds just exploded. Farmers can make this much money?
How could you be that well dressed and be a farmer?
Oh my god.
But like the things that build those false conceptions are always things that were written in for like a real reason. Or is one of those amusing anecdotes 100 chapters ago. And then becomes important in this one scene where only because it was there did things go the way they were supposed to. Overgeared's a good time, man. I it's weird how much we've talked about without being so much very
we
specific.
we haven't really talked about that much because, like, I didn't even get to talk about Mercedes and her Knight's Code and all the changes she's made
Oh
and the
gosh.
growth in that relationship.
Yeah, no,
Oh
it's
my
really
god!
and the fucking scene with Irene where where great like where the long worry of having to deal with another scene like fucking Khan with Irene suddenly gets solved, and Irene shows up in tears because you're like, you made me a god without asking.
Dude, she literally had, because she spent so much time alone, right, with just her children because Grid is always gone, right? Because of that, and she's been aging, and Grid never ages. She's been aging, like he can see that she's getting older and she's aging gracefully, right? But she's aging, and she had mentally prepared herself to die before her husband, die alone, basically. And the feeling, the shock of the change without her even being knowing about the things that he was doing was just a lot. And it's like, realistically, yeah, if you had mentally prepared yourself and accepted this is how things are going to be for that surprise to happen, yeah, you should be upset.
No, I'm not trying to. Yeah, no, absolutely, I
No, no, no,
agree.
no,
She
no,
has
no. I
every right.
agree. Yeah, but like, of course, Grid was being like kind of unreasonable to not even consider discussing this because it affects
Oh,
someone's existence, right?
no,
Like,
absolutely. I fully agree. But it was hilarious that he did that by just dressing up as her and then just being himself.
he wasn't really convincing as the queen of the Overgeared Kingdom.
I
Like,
loved I loved the moment where somebody was looking at him doing something ridiculous, and it's like, no wonder everyone respects the Overgeared King, even though he showed up out of nowhere. The Overgeared Queen is the real strong one in the kingdom. The people who aren't moving must know that.
he's like, why would the Overgeared King see his queen over here to die? Oh, she's the true power behind the throne. Oh my
It
god.
remained like it's such it. The only other story that in my mind like mixes comedy and emotion so well has been like maybe I Shall Seal the Heavens or like a Will Eternal, and like that's I mean that's pretty heavy praise coming from me. I'm not that's I wouldn't say the emotions are as deep as I Shall Seal the Heavens gets, but it gets there sometimes. Like it's a really emotionally written novel, and I really enjoy what it's done.
They took something as generic as a system slash VR game, VR MMO concept, and they turned it into its own gem. Like, I don't know how long they're gonna last, but I can say this is definitely this generation's legendary Moonlight Sculptor. This is the new one. This is gonna be the
Yeah,
new. Are you as good? This is gonna be the new measuring stick for long running Korean novels for sure. This is it.
yeah. I hope. I honestly hope so because like if this is what the yardstick is, then we're gonna be in for some good stories. But I think that's probably a good place to call this one. Seth, do we have some business?
Yeah, we've got the usual. I've been quietly looking for some reviews to read this whole time, but I don't think I have any. No new ones.
I mean, we've been pretty quiet in the interim. Uh,
Yeah.
with the world and all, but so that's very understandable. Shout out to all the new our new friends in Discord. You know, we've seen a lot of people join our Discord since during our hiatus to stay in touch and chat and you know talk about novels while we haven't been doing it on the internet. So
Keep
it's been
doing
a
that.
lot. It's been a
It's
lot of
really
fun
nice
getting
to
to know
have
you
you
guys.
guys. Yeah, it's really nice to have you guys around and to like uh exactly what Kenny said, get to know you and further uh uh to like hear the things that you guys want to hear about. We're doing this episode largely because you know, there's a lot to talk about, but also because there's been a lot of requests for it. Like it's a really popular thing, and everybody in our Discord has been insisting. So if you're if you have been listening to this show and you're like, man, I really wish they'd talk about X, Y, or Z, come join us on the Discord. Come talk to us.
We
We're
definitely
cool
try to
dudes.
talk. I'm always there, and I just want to bring up we're trying to set up a EPUB repository in our Discord.
Yeah, so
Because
if you have ones you want to share or ones you want to request of other people, that we have a channel in there for that, and we're trying to get the link to the repository there as well, so that you can look up stuff that's been shared.
all right, and
Yeah.
we're gonna be doing a lot more of this, guys. You're not gonna get a
Uh,
long break like this ever. Now that we have access to this, if nature stops us, then the internet will enable us.
we'll do what we can. I'm gonna make an effort to keep us a little bit more regular,
Yeah.
or at least do my part in that. But thank you as always to James and Yuki Okami. I know we've got some other Patreon supporters that have come in as well, I believe, since then. And we I don't think anyone at the higher tiers, but any amount of support is really, really appreciated, and especially in the midst of our hiatus. So thank you so much to anyone who has supported us and made this a little bit easier to do.
You guys are the best. Thank you for continuing to be excellent, awesome fans who, you know, just want to listen to cool stuff about cool books, and we hope to be able to keep providing that to you.
And hopefully I'll get back on the train on reading more than just the 6 to 8 novels that I have on deck.
Yeah, I'm gonna read Legendary Mechanic, and that's gonna be my first real episode that I'm gonna cover.
Well, hey,
Legendary Mechanic.
at least I've had a few of my books end recently, like Second Coming of Gluttony. So that will theoretically free me up to read some other stuff. So we'll get there, I'm sure. I'm looking forward to talking about Second Coming of Gluttony, honestly, now that it's done.
I'm looking forward to that as well. And I might do Kill the Hero as well. I've heard some requests about that.
Yeah, I started reading Above Your Head that was recently coming out, which I've been fairly interested in, but I think I'm going to let it build up some before I catch back up.
I mean, how far did you get in? Maybe we could do like a little short. What's that about?
I think I'm somewhere in like the 50s to 70s.
That's a fun. That's a fun new segment called "What's That About?" Wow.
I might read to that point, and we could do a little like, hey, is this worth reading?
I think there's only like 100 chapters out. It's definitely a weird book. Like, it's trying to do something different, and I applaud it for that at the very least. Whether or not it's going to pull it off, I think remains to be seen. But I like what I've read so far, so we'll see.
All right.
But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. We hope to see you guys next time. And again, thank you so much for your support.
You can always reach out to us on Discord. Twitter is at Tiger Coaster, tiger.rollercoaster@gmail.com. All the ones. You guys know them. There's a link to the Discord in the description of this podcast. So click it. Come join us.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Bye.
Tiger Roller Coaster Productions. Tigers are scary. You try to get off.